Hey, Pastor Wes here with another Ask Wes question. Let me first say thank you again to all those who are writing in. Just the past few weeks, it's been really amazing the amount of questions that continue to increase. We want to do the best that we can to answer them. Please understand we probably can't get to all of them, but whether through written blog or through videos, we're going to do the best that we can to help equip you in the gospel. We had someone write in, I think, with an issue that is so common to people if they've been a Christian for very long, and that is about how do you deal with people who are struggling with losing their faith. You know, maybe you've gone through this. Maybe you have family members who have dealt with this. Maybe you know people at work who've gone through seasons where they questioned God, they questioned themselves, their faith, they questioned whether or not God was real. I think this is a common thing for those who are walking the walk in the journey of faith. So how do we address that? What does the Bible say? How would I address you if you're going through that? Or how would I advise you to address others who are maybe dealing with that situation? Well, the first thing is I think the Bible gives us the freedom to ask these kinds of questions. The reason why I said earlier that this is a common experience in the walk of faith is because it's all over the Bible. I mean, read the Psalms. There are some deep, deep Psalms where the psalmists are going through very difficult times in questioning their faith. They feel like God's abandoned them. They feel like God's nowhere around. They wonder about, will they ever get out of their situation? Read books like Habakkuk. Habakkuk starts with, how long, O Lord, am I going to remain in this situation? Questioning God in faith because of the circumstances that they're dealing with. And so I think it's unfortunate that sometimes Christians stick their head in the sand, so to speak, and act as though real faith can't ask real questions. So if you know of somebody who's going through a difficult time in their faith and really asking a lot of hard questions, give them room to do so. It's okay. It's actually natural and healthy to do that. And so that's the first thing, is give people the room to be honest about where they are. Second thing is I want to encourage you to go to the book of Hebrews, to read that book. Here's why. The book of Hebrews is written to a group of Christians who are struggling with this very thing. Their struggle is going back to Judaism, back to Jerusalem under the old sacrificial system, instead of remaining faithful to what they know is true in Christ and the gospel. And so they're kind of on that fence. Do I fall back or do I move forward? What the writer of Hebrews does is very significant. There are two major things throughout that book that he does to Christians who are struggling in their faith. Number one is he warns them. Throughout the book, there are all kinds of, if you continue down this road, here's where it's going to end up. So it's okay to ask these questions, and you're free to deal with that. But if this continues, and certainly if it continues to the point that it leads you to disobedience, you need to know that road is going to end in a place you don't want to be. And so the writer of Hebrews warns Christians who are struggling with this. At the same time, he encourages them. Stir one another up to love and good works. Respond in obedience while it's still called today. He not only warns them, but he encourages them in the Lord with truth. Not in a preachy kind of way. You know, sometimes it's like, well, you know, all things work to good. And that's true, but sometimes it's not real helpful. What we need is a balance of warning and encouragement in the Lord, a saturation with truth, a reminder of what we know to be real, to ask those questions, but don't let your emotions dictate your spiritual reality. So give people freedom to ask the hard questions. Two is warn them and encourage them in the Lord. And then lastly, make sure that your assurance is in the gospel. What I mean by that is, here's what we know. True faith can never be lost. Jesus teaches this in the parable of the soils. Some seed falls on ground where it grows for a while, but ultimately gets choked out. That's not genuine seed. It's not a genuine response to the gospel. Good seed in the parable endures. It lasts in an ongoing way. And so what we know in that parable is that true faith is never a lost faith. You see this also, for instance, in 1 John. The Apostle John talks about they went out of us, which displayed they were never really of us, because we don't ultimately know people's hearts. But what we know is true faith perseveres. And so if you're in that situation, if you know of somebody who's in that situation, my response is, one, give them room. Don't judge them for asking hard questions and dealing with deep, serious questions about their faith. That's a good thing. Number two, warn them and encourage them. And those two things go together, as we see in the book of Hebrews. Thirdly is be confident and assured that true faith can't be lost. And so you don't need to panic or fear, if you have a family member who's going through this. Rest assured in the gospel. And if they ultimately display that their faith was not genuine, then you pray for them as an unbeliever. You approach them as an unbeliever, that they would have genuine faith in the Lord. I hope that helps if you're going through a season like that or know someone who is. Again, this is Pastor Wes. Thanks so much for being a part of our blog as we continue to equip you for the sake of the gospel.